Yes,
Can the viewers at home put on a mask also?
yeah.
Yeah, it's not fair.
That's why we're home.
Just thought I would even the score here.
I think we have about a minute before we get started.
Yeah, Tara's gonna
Double checking our YouTube.
get all the YouTube stuff and then the WebEx and then hit the record button and.
Okay.
Is Mayor Walters coming too?
Mayor Walters had a conflict. So that's a no.
Recording?
So,
Okay. So should we call the meeting to order? We have enough members. Okay, call to order. Let's take a look at tonight's agenda. For approval of the agenda. We have some community comments, items of interest from the board, if anybody has pieces. The Adult Community Center update, offer land or property, and go bond project update. Board, is there anything you'd like to see added or changed to the agenda tonight?
No,
Nope.
Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda.
Do we have a second?
yeah, I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, awesome. And approval of summary notes. Were there any changes to the notes from last time?
Yeah, they look good to me.
Okay, you want to make a motion to approve the
Yeah,
minutes?
I'll move to approve them.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
All right.
Super. Then let's go to community comments. And a reminder, community comments, we allow 5 minutes per person. And while we listen, we just listen. Okay. So who do we have here tonight?
well, we have Angela Thomas and Neil Brown talking on two separate topics. So we'll let Angela go first.
Hi, I'll just stand up. Hi, I'm Angela Thomas. I live here in Westland and I'll try to keep it short. So my concern is at Willamette Park down, I don't know how to describe it, down where you can go down to the beach by where the ducks are, not the boat landing, but the other side over by the E-Energy kayaks. I go down there every single day. You may have seen me down there. I'm down there every single day, every night. Sometimes I have my rabbit down there with me. But I go down and sit with the ducks or whatever. And my concern is in that area, whether you come either way that you can manage your way down there. All last summer and continuing to even like an hour ago, when people come down there with their dogs, they let them off the leash and the dogs just go running. I have seen some things happen down there that are not very pleasant. Like I've seen the dogs pick up ducklings like in their mouth and run off with them. I've seen them where even my little rabbit is on a leash, and so I'll have him right by me on this harness, even though he can't walk because he has arthritis, but the dogs will come right over. I'll have to grab my rabbit. They'll eat the food if I have anything. And I love all animals. I love animals, dogs. So I started calling when this was happening. Dogs were chasing kids and other little dogs and stuff like that. I do understand when people see the water in the summer, they want to take the dogs and let them run in the water. I'm all for that and I love to see that, but I also have concerns the other way. So when I started calling and talking to the nice lady who answers the phone, she put through my concerns, and I told her, I talked to her while I was sitting there and kind of told her what I witness all the time. And people, the community members are getting into arguments out there about your dog needs to be on a leash, but people don't know that they need to be on a leash. So it's no fault to them either. So last week, so I called again and I was told that it was kind of no because they already went to, there's already signs out there. I do understand that also. So when I went out there tonight, I just looked and when you first come in, I don't ever go over to this side, but I do know that there's one old sign that's right in front of one parking spot that says animals must be on a leash. And it faces one parking spot. It doesn't face the rest. But last summer and the summer before, I did see big dogs chase after little dogs out there. And I'm yelling at people like, your dog needs to be on a leash, and it's just chaos. So I stay over here, but all that whole rest of the way, there's no signs. So I was told that no signs could be put up because there's already so many signs, but I actually don't see any at all in that whole area. There are two signs sort of over there, like where they have the stage. It says Westland Dog Control Ordinance strictly enforced, but it doesn't really mention, like I don't have dogs, so I wouldn't know what that really means. So I'm looking for something really specific, more in that area where the ducks are. Like where people would go down and not take their dogs off the leash and let them run down into the water. Even though I love seeing that, I also don't love seeing the other carts, and it upsets me when I'm down there. Okay, thank you.
I really appreciate you bringing this to our attention. I know exactly where you're talking about because I love to kayak.
I kayak with my rabbit, so you might see me there all the time, yeah.
And we appreciate the personal witness and sharing experience. It is totally must be a leashed park.
Yeah.
There's no off-leash area in Willamette Park, isn't that correct?
Right, there's one off, technically two off-leash areas in the city on public property, period.
Yeah.
Period.
Those are both in Marius Young. And we can, I'm not sure who to talk to, but we can certainly take a look at signage down there,
Yeah.
and see what's there.
I would really like something specifically in that area that's really specific, even a cute sign, like something that's not anti-dog owner or
Well, we
anything like that.
have signs that deal with leash and picking up after their dogs. Those
Yeah.
two things. Now, the proper thing for you to do, if you feel it's a problem, is to call non-emergency dispatch, 635-0238. This is a code violation. It's against the law in the city of Westland. You know, that unfortunately our park employees don't have regulatory authority. We're like you, we can say, please put your dog on a leash. But that's the action we need to
Well,
do.
that's what was recommended to me, but two things on that. One is I don't want to be known as that person because I do go there and a lot of people see me there every day. I run a website called Westland Muscovy Dog, and people people kind of know me down there, so I don't want to do that. And then the other thing is when that happens and the dogs are going crazy, I'm like, get your dog on the leash. And so they take off and we kind of have words before I could even call, like, before the police would even get there, it's already like an upheaval and then they're gone or I leave
And
or
your-
someone leaves.
And your response is very common when we get phone calls of this nature all across the city all summer. Unfortunately, people don't want to call the police,
Right.
they want to call us and,
Yeah,
we understand completely as I think dogs have become more popular, just like our parks have become more popular.
yeah,
And, these, concerns aren't just a Willamette, we have them all out,
yeah,
all over.
yeah.
But we can certainly look at signage and talk to our police about that specific
Okay.
thing and see, if they can't drive by a little more frequently and,
Yeah,
be a little more observant, with dogs out leash and hopefully, maybe curb that a little bit.
I just want to also follow up with, I believe we looked at signs that covered these are the park rules. We look at, putting new signs out. Where are we with that? It's a slow go.
They-
We have them. We're just looking for the right place in the park.
And I think Willamette has one, if
Yeah.
I'm not mistaken.
I didn't.
But
say
they're
what
this
sign.
big, right? I mean, you know, we decided not to go into huge giant signs. You know, if you look at a park like Willamette, put signs there, you know, to make sure that every direction from where people come to that park, whether they're walking, driving. I mean, we could put a dozen in that park, which, you know, I don't know that that's bad, but, you know, because people park in all directions, walk the fields where they park, and then, like, Angela mentioned, there's kind of two areas to park to get to that non-motorized boat area. You know, so, you know, signage is relatively complicated just because we've always kind of not wanted 100 signs in our parks to kind of tell people everything they can't do. But we can certainly take a look at those strong ones for sure.
I did look at the, park rules before I came here, and I feel sorry for the parks department because nobody follows any of those rules. I read through all of them and I was like, I see people doing parking on the grass, fires. I see these happening down just in the little spot where I go every day. People have fires, park on the grass, let their dogs, like every rule. Alcohol. Yeah.
But that is for the police to enforce, correct?
It is, yeah. I mean, those are, park rules become, you know, part of the ordinance and
I just don't see any signs to be enforced is the thing. So I came in and drove tonight down the middle and looked for signs. I took a picture of that one on this
Right.
facing the parking spot. And then I went around and out this way and I just don't really see any signs for anything.
And we can look at that. I mean, and I have to say, for the most part, I think my opinion is, and I think it's been substantiated through the years, people know the law. So,
I don't know. I
I
don't,
mean, because people with dogs out leash will tell us that, oh, we know, but they don't.
Yeah.
enforce it.
I don't know. It doesn't seem
Could
like
be
they
everybody.
are, sometimes they're kids or, you know,
Right.
wives, that they just let them off to go run in the water and all over the place. And they really are very apologetic. I think they're caught off by surprise when people start yelling at them. I think that they really don't know sometimes.
Sure, and we'll look at signage now. There's a good place to.
Okay, thank you.
Really appreciate you bringing it to our attention, and hearing, you know, firsthand experience and we all experience.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Parks Board, are there any other questions or follow-up discussion? Nope,
Any
okay.
great ideas, words of wisdom?
No, I just say that Ken is right. Almost all the dog owners know that their dogs are supposed to be on a leash, and they just choose not to do it.
Well,
John spends thousands of hours at Mary's Park volunteering with us. So he's
That's,
well
yeah,
aware of things that happen in our park.
that's, I don't go to that park. I live on this side of town, but, I hear about the dog issues. I hear about it over there.
yeah,
But
thanks.
we'll certainly. Thanks.
Okay, awesome. And we also have joining us tonight, it looks like on
Hello.
Veterans Memorial Park and Tiger as an example.
Hello, my name is Neil Brown. I live in Tigard. Westland has a special part in my heart because I helped start the Westland Rotary Club years ago, probably 2005, 2006. And I was past president of the Westland Rotary Club. And so at any rate, I wanted to let you know that when I joined Westland, I toured all your parks and the schools because I had to know what people were talking about in my Rotary Club when they mentioned this park and the locks and that type of thing. So I took a special interest. And I took that interest and saw what a great job you had done in parks in Westland. Took it back to Tigard, and at that time, they had passed a bond measure, $17 million, and I got them to buy 10 acres near my house. And I got them to buy a piece downtown Tigard, which is going to be the Pioneer Square for Tigard, and another place on Greenberg Road. So I've got 3 parks in Tigard. So since then, this last year, I had a lot of time because I was on cancer treatment, and I started thinking that the Veterans Memorial Park. And I saw what the city of North Plains did. They put a big flagpole, they have a Veterans Memorial Park in North Plains. If you drive the Sunset Freeway, you can see their flagpole. It's fantastic. And I figured if a small town of 4,000 people can put in the Veterans Memorial Park, Tigard can do one too. So I proposed this for Tigard. And I have taken this to the VFW, the American Legion, and different veterans groups, the Navy League, asked them to support our project in Tigard. And what's grown out of that is the fact that there are other towns that don't have a veterans park or veterans memorial anyplace in town. And so it's kind of expanded. And so what I'm here to do is to propose to you that you consider a Veterans Memorial Park for Westland. And it's as simple as that. And I'm sure I can get the Rotary Club behind it. I want to pass this out to everybody. And I can't give you one at home.
We'll take a picture and send it to them.
Okay. Do what you, yeah. And I have my information on the back. Once you get a name and a location, then you can apply for funding. And there's all kinds of grants in the state of Oregon that you can apply for to fund these parks. Okay? So all you need is a name and a location. And somebody, okay, which I assume will the city
Council, sure.
council.
Yeah.
Yeah. But at any rate, I proposed this for the city of Tigard, and they own 22 acres or 27 acres out on Roy Rogers Road and East Bend Road. And it's going to be some baseball fields and soccer fields. And I would like to see them dedicate the front 200 feet to Veterans Memorial Park. So if you know where Al's nursery is, many of us spend money there every year. $300 or $400. So at any rate, that's where it is. So anyway, I just came to, if you have any questions, I'm happy to take.
Neil, I just have a couple of questions. I'm a little unclear. Are you asking us to voice support for this Veterans Memorial Park in Tigard, or to try to replicate it in Westland? I'm not exactly sure what.
I would like you to replicate it in Westland or do something that fits Westland. And if not, this is, my daughter drew this up for Tigard. It's just a proposal.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, you can, but whatever, I would like to see one in every major city. And I consider Westland.
Just a matter of protocol. Something like this would go through city council, wouldn't it? This isn't a parks decision, is it?
Well, it's not necessarily a parks decision. Absolutely, it could. You know, we could possibly start to have an internal conversation, you know, as the city, you know, talk about a potential location, you know, the desire to fund something like this, where would the money come from? You know, so it's it's a much broader conversation that would actually end up eventually in our capital improvements program, potentially. It could go under public works, could go under parks, could go under, you know, different pieces of the budget. You know, but that's how it would kind of progress to get to a point where it would be a planned project.
In Tigard, we're thinking that this will be privately funded.
Oh, okay.
Once we get the 200 by 200 feet, okay, It's about an acre, 40,000 square feet. We think this will be privately funded. So, and there are a lot of grants that are available. Really, I don't think you're looking for money right from the city. I think you're just looking for a location and permission
Mhm.
And someone,
and a name.
and someone to champion that cause here at Westland, right? I mean,
Right. You don't want an outsider campaign. That's why I'm here, to look for an insider that,
sure.
that, you know,
And we really appreciate you bringing this to us and taking the time to share and having such nice materials
Great.
to paint a picture.
thank you.
That's great. Any other comments or questions from the board?
But full disclosure, I spoke with Neil at a veterans event a couple of months ago, and we spoke about this, and I would just lend support to the idea that we consider it, especially, I think probably the key here is if we get a veteran service organization like American Legion or VFW behind it, and especially if we could tie it to specific Westland veterans, you know, and especially if we've had some that have given their lives in service, and probably, you know, provide something that is uniquely Westland, as opposed to a generic veterans park, and not to denigrate that idea, but just to personalize it more, I think, to Westland. So I think it's worth some discussion and maybe some outreach to the VSOs.
Can I say two more things? Sure. I wanted this to be someplace that people went to, not hidden away someplace. So I wanted it very visible and where people actually went to it, not where it's hidden away or you drive by it. I think it's important for our history.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Can I make it? I'll make a suggestion too, is the idea of making like a very large scale area. Yes, it seems daunting, or to purchase property also seems daunting. But something that just came to mind is the historic Old Town building that's going to be reworked and stuff. Is it possible to put up a flagpole or a memorial or something as a part of that construction process and make a spot for it, so to speak, that is going to be like a larger community entity where people will be coming through, and it's not a park, but it is something that's a more public place that is in the works to be, you know, remodeled, and maybe
Yeah.
they work it in somewhere. So just an idea.
Jane, that's a great idea. Thank you.
Yeah. It is a great idea. I'll just mention that I know we've talked a little bit, but Historic City Hall, the city really only owns the footprint of the building. We don't own any of the parking around it, but there is that little area out front. I mean, it could be a conversation piece, and I think down the road with a lot of things happening in that area, there could be, you know, a possibility of partnering with Willamette Paper and ODOT, and everybody wants to change everything there. So it's a great idea if we can finagle 200 by 200 or something.
Could be smaller.
Yeah,
It
sure.
could be smaller.
Yeah.
Thank you. Great creative thing to bring to us tonight.
Great.
Kara, do we have anybody waiting virtually to speak?
We do not.
Awesome. So let's go ahead and open it up. If there are any items of interest from the board that you wanted to bring tonight? Jane?
So we had a quick discussion about diversity, equity, and inclusion last time, and just to kind of wrap back to that, I have a concern that was I thought long and hard whether or not even to bring it up, but it made me realize that if I have the concern, then maybe somebody else does. But last month it was brought up that a private group that's using the park, that women must be segregated from men because of vulgar language and some offensive behaviors. And in the eyes of equity and inclusion, at no time should any group feel threatened or need to be physically protected through segregation. So I'm just having a hard time accepting that the city not only has knowledge about these problems, but they're maybe actively celebrating and promoting them.
So was it somebody who rented the space? or that was visiting?
Well, it's a group that routinely uses a space at a park, and the activities that they have are segregated by age and by sex, and Mr. Warner mentioned, it's because that the behaviors put off by one identity group is offensive to the other group, and that they would need to be segregated because of that. And it just, after reading the Kenley group report, that it just doesn't sit right with me.
So you're talking about ladies' night and pickleball?
Yes.
Okay.
So that it's been advertised and only some groups are allowed to use it, and that there's also a division by age, that people under 30 weren't welcome, and it's been brought to my attention. People have mentioned it to me that's flies in the face of diversity. So I am not out to get pickleball. I am not. That's not my purpose. We talked about diversity before, and it's just something that we've had the conversation about. And how do we promote diversity in all groups at all times in the park system is all.
I'm going to piggyback on that. And I think especially in a community that has an adult community center that is focused on an older group, and we don't have any facility for kids, that we also have age and time. I mean, the one thing that I would wonder is there an adverse impact to one group or the other? And for example, is it Monday, Tuesday, Thursday? I mean, do they rotate who gets what? Or is it, men who are over 50 get everything from 6 to 7 because that's the best time? I think that we should look into anything that has an adverse impact on any group of our population. There are people who enjoy their own affinity groups to do things in. However, if the planning isn't around the affinity group, it's around giving a specific group of our community special time, then we really have to pay attention to that. I don't know.
Yeah, so Jane, I guess I would look for more specifics. And I don't recall what I said that made you think about this, but I mean, our pickleball club has a total of about 16 hours a week that they utilize, certain hours for open play. There are times when they will hold a ladies' night, like I said, which is very popular. And men and women sometimes play the game differently. Men are, tend to be slammers and will hit the ball a lot harder. And other times they will have little tournaments where people actually sign up. They are having one event coming up where people are signing up for a clinic, and they're, partnering to utilize the hours they have as a club. So I'm certainly willing to have that conversation, absolutely. And I don't know if you want to do it here or somewhere else, but I guess I just don't understand what you're hearing, or what was said, I guess.
Well, it was the conversation that you mentioned was that that ladies' nights are necessary because men are abrasive and rude. And I was like, wow, I couldn't believe that. And so, you're aware that, there is a problem with all genders being treated equally in a facility. And I guess
hostile and intimidating to others, right?
Right. And I can see, in a women's shelter or something, where people need to be protected, but that it just made me think, and if I'm thinking that maybe something is not equal, and that, people under 30 were not welcome at some of these events, that, it's something that the Parks Department, I think, and the city needs to address, and somehow quantitatively.
Okay.
Do we have something in our contract language for our partners that assures that there be access without discriminating on the basis of any population?
We don't currently have that in all of our contracts and agreements. You know, we can certainly look at it and if, you know, there's something happening, you know, I guess I'll say, Jane, maybe I use too strong of words. I think in the pickleball club that I belong to, which isn't in this city, and I know the leadership of this club, like I say, men and women sometimes just play the game differently, at different skill levels. Women are much more social in pickleball, I think. My wife loves to go to ladies' night. It's her favorite time. I don't think it's, you know, because it's not being caused. I think it's just what they enjoy. But we can certainly, you know, have meetings with our club and make sure that, you know, that's not the case. I'm sure, you know, there are probably people that aren't as inclusive and want to play with their little group at times. You know, and that's what the club's there for during their hours, is to make sure that, you know, there's a rotation system. They have at the, you know, outside of the fence, you put your paddle, and when two go on, two come out, the next two go in, and you know, it's really kind of like an open gym scenario for the most part. You know, but we'll certainly talk to them, and if you want to, you know, let me know if you're hearing things, please, you know, let me know that you've heard something different than what I'm seeing or hearing from those people, because we certainly, you know, want to be inclusive all the time.
Okay. Yeah, I think like you said, maybe putting something in the contract that says, you know, to abide by all, you know, federal regulations, and then certainly, you know, the diversity, equity, inclusion ideologies are being put forth by the city and were reflected in the DEI report last spring, that you know, like exclusion by age and by sex, and, you know, charging people to use the courts whether they're, that kind of thing is, you know, not appreciated and not promoted by the city. So maybe putting something in writing, like a first violation, second violation, that kind of thing, and just, you know, the MOUs, maybe they need to be more specific with their inclusion, and diversity, equity, inclusion needs to be involved in those MOUs in the future too. So yeah, just something to think about that just.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I just did a search on Willamette River Pickleball Club, and Westland Pickleball, and everything looks like it's open to all, with the exception of a ladies' night that is focused, is a clinic that's for women over 30. So it looks like all of their activities are open, but perhaps they have an affinity group to make it very easy, you know, like a beginner's league of some kind. But just a quick scan, everything looks like it's opened up to all. That one exception, but I do think that it surfaces a really good idea, making sure that all of our partners do not adversely impact any.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Jane. Any other items of interest from the board? Okay, then let's move on to talking about the Adult Community Center. What is our update for the Adult Community Center?
Well, we went to start October. I think you guys were sent the link, the October newsletter. So they're just moving forward, you know, adding new classes, just trying to get their volunteers in there. But they're open Monday through Friday, 9 to 3. Yeah, more and more people are showing up, so it's been great. They're trying to, you know, work out just different activities, you know, trying to do some other gatherings, different classes, free classes, different exercise classes, different times of the day. So just trying to fill in those spots. But that's great. Everyone's excited. It's still open. And then we're just moving forward with our next big event, the Boo Drive-Through. That's gonna happen in a couple weeks down at Willamette Park, Burnett Landing for 2 nights. And we are gearing up for our winter events. Our tree lighting is the first Friday of the month up here at City Hall. And then our holiday parade is the second Saturday down in Old Historic Willamette. And getting ready for next summer already. We're gonna talk about next summer already too.
Yeah, so on the so we just kind of want to keep you up to date on the recreation side. We do have a new rec coordinator that started recently. Dawn Cole left us and she's back training, Tyler Harmon, who is now working with us. So we're bringing someone, you know, up to speed. We are getting ready to start our Mini Hoopers basketball program, which will have about 200 kindergartners through 2nd grade playing basketball over the next 2.5 months. For those of you that have been around and maybe know, we started a recreation basketball program about 6 years ago, 3rd through 8th grade, had over 500 kids through our department. And this year we have actually worked with Westland Basketball, who is a nonprofit that kind of has done the select. We try out for teams. It was always a little bit clunky having 2 organizations doing basketball with scheduling and facilities at our school district, tryout times, setting up teams. Our timelines would always kind of get mixed up. So we worked with them and are partnering with them still to transition the recreation basketball to their organization. So we've been working close with them to make sure that's kind of a seamless transition to have kind of all the basketball under one roof this year. And that's just kind of what we wanted to, along with sending those links out for you, let you know what's happening in the recreation world. We still have some constraints, as you know, with COVID-19, and we're monitoring those. And knock on wood, I read every day that the numbers are getting a little better, and that's all. Hopefully, it opens up some doors for us on the recreation side as we enter this colder weather and we can't do as much outside.
Are there any questions or comments from the board?
All right, Tara, let's see if this pulls out.
Oh, sorry, I get it shared.
So the next topic we have on our agenda is Oppenlander property. And hopefully we'll get it loaded up in 1 second so we can share our screen and walk through a conversation on Oppenlander.
It's up.
I shouldn't. So as you probably know, Oppenlander property is a 10-acre piece owned by the Westland Wilsonville School District. They have deemed that as surplus property. There's been a lot of conversation with city council and the school district, and the residents of Westland will vote in May of 2022 in an election to pass a bond measure for the city to purchase the property. The purchase price is going to be determined in December of 2021. If the voters don't approve the purchase, the sale contract will just be terminated. The school district will sell that to a willing buyer. If voters do approve the purchase, the property will subsequently be formally designated as a park. And that, as you know, the school district wanted that, and that means that, it can only be used a park without the vote of the people to change that. I kind of just put together, I don't know how familiar all of you are with Oppenlander, but I wanted to kind of show you just what it is. So this is where it's located on Rosemont Road. It's a 10-acre parcel that is, surrounded by homes. This is what an overhead looks like. Got a parking lot, a bunch of fields, baseball, softball. They've been used for a number of things throughout the years. So if we just make sure you're aware, this is the entrance off of Rosemont. It does have a very large gravel parking lot, 430 feet by 70 feet. The district put these staples down the middle of the parking lot because kids were or someone was going in there and driving around doing cookies or donuts. So they did that to hopefully have them not do it anymore. So there are two access points to Oppenlander property by pathway. One is off Miles Court. And one is off Haverhill Court at the back property. So you can see there's a nice asphalt pathway. As it gets back and kind of starts to access the property, it gets a little bumpy and there is a boardwalk, but might want a little improvements there. Miles Drive has a gravel pathway that goes from Miles Drive and then the pathway into the park. So when we look at the upper half of this, there are buildings and storage that we'll look at. There's what has been known as Field 3, which is a regulation size baseball field. The outfield of Field 3 has been used for soccer through the years. Right now, it kind of has a permanent home run fence for baseball. And then Field 4 is a pretty large field that hasn't been used much, but it's an overflow field that could be utilized for a lot of different things. So these are the buildings that exist that are owned by the Westland Wilsonville School District. First one is Westland Lions Storage. This is a verbal agreement by the school district with that group. Westland Baseball uses some storage, and that's also a verbal agreement that they have to utilize the district's buildings on site. The last one just holds utilities for water and electricity. Behind those buildings are just some storage containers that baseball has used and an old kind of concession stand. Storage containers potentially would have to be an issue resolved if this does become a park. Those are really not allowed. They don't meet the architectural standards in the city. So if we look at Field 4, this is a very large field. It was kind of that front corner closest to Rosemont, about 250 feet by 150 feet. The regulation baseball field has an artificial turf infield, natural grass outfield. There is some concerns with the size of the backstop. There's some feelings it needs to be a little bigger to hold the baseballs in a little better. Field 3 multi-use area, this large field that used to be soccer, about 300 by 180. A big area that could be used. The lower portion this is basically the other half. Multi-use areas has what's called Field 1 for youth baseball, a 60-foot field, traditionally for those 12 and under. And Field 2 is the other one, which is also traditionally used for those 12 and under. So this is Field 1. The far right-hand corner, baseball has put money into this field. They have artificial turf cutouts at all 4 bases and the pitcher's mound. Uh-oh. Lost my place. Apologize. This is Field 2. It also has a little smaller artificial turf cutouts on that field, but it does have dugouts and a backstop. This is a very large grass area. It's over 300 feet by over 330 feet. It's been used by soccer through the years, but it can certainly be used for many different activities. So part of the conversation that I wanted to have tonight was, if the voters of Westland pass this bond measure in May of 2022, the school district property is going to transition to a park. When we talked internally about this, what does this mean for the city and the Parks and Rec Department? Well, it means that we're going to acquire 10 acres that needs to be improved potentially, needs to be maintained. Are there any needed or additional amenities that we might add to the property as it transitions to a city park? How is this different from a school district property? And then, the last one kind of ties into that. Should funding be added to the May 22 bond measure above the purchase price for any of the needed or additional amenities that we or the community may feel appropriate. So what we've done when we've had these conversations is kind of look at what is on site and what is kind of a little menu of potential capital improvement opportunities that could go into Oppenlander property. If it transitions from a school district surplus site to a park. So the upper section, can you guys read this?
You mark it.
Yes.
Yes and no. Do I have a Zoom somewhere, Tara?
Yeah.
Unless you want to see up all of our noses, you know, as we like get really close to the screen. But you can email it to us.
I will. I mean, so I can't. We'll talk through it. How's that? So the top portion just kind of has what we went through, what is on site. The second section, you know, kind of talks about park conversion amenities that might be needed. You know, the school district, you know, has let different groups use this facility for about the past 10 to 15 years, as is through their reservation systems. So what comes to mind when we look at this as we transition to a park is there are no restrooms on site. You know, we looked at, would there be desire for a play structure, a dog park? Parking lot is gravel. Should it be asphalt? Do we need, you know, to put ADA pathways throughout the park to the current amenities, irrigation upgrades, upgrades to pathways to and from the neighborhoods, those two access points. And then the bottom portion kind of goes into, well, what if we want to make this a very much more user, many more opportunities with artificial turf. You know, it kind of goes into how can we add to the upper field, the lower field. It kind of lays out some costs that we've estimated. You know, so I think, you know, the conversation that I wanted to have and let you have is, you know, as this does potentially transition to a park, what does the park board feel are essential or maybe important amenities that might go into a bond measure above and beyond that purchase price? Because when it transitions to a park, in my professional opinion, the expectations are going to change of our community. You know, the school district has allowed youth groups to utilize it as is. You know, education is their mission, and, you know, this has not been a piece of property that contributed to the education of the, you know, community, their community, you know, for the past 10 to 12 years. So I think, you know, that's the conversation. Get some opinions from the board on what you feel might be important to look at if this does transition to a park. That makes sense?
Yeah. Chris, here, a couple quick thoughts just right off the top. I think the restrooms are critical, given that there's none there, and you're just inviting problems if you don't. On the construction contingency, if you mentioned what that was for, I guess I blanked on it or something, but I assume there'll be some cost incurred with either upgrading those storage buildings or clearing them out or something. Is that what that is, or is that something else?
The construction contingency, Chris, is really just our supply chain is a mess. We don't know when this would be built. Did we underestimate? It's just really kind of that contingency that we threw in at 25% of total cost. Kind of the same thing with the next line item is just all the soft costs, the designs, the architects, the land use, the engineering. And you know, those are big numbers because it kind of is based on that whole big list. You know, and we, like I say, this is just kind of a menu for people to look at, not a recommendation. It's kind of ideas.
Sure. Yeah, and that makes sense. And yeah, I guess so. So that my first thought was the restroom and probably the paving, because we talked about that before. That's going to be an issue if it becomes a park, an official park. But beyond that, it seems like the primary usage of the field right now is athletics. I guess I would be inclined to to not head in towards try to make it an all-purpose, all things for all people with, tot lots and dog parks and so forth too. It's probably not going to be a popular position, but again, it seems that the athletics are the primary use for it. So that's the thought. And then the other thought related to that would be on an optional side. If we were going to upgrade the fields, one thing I don't see there on optional stuff would be the potential for lighting to allow night games. So just consider whether that would be a potential addition for optionals. And then my very last thought is, I do think, we talked about this last month, but I do think we need to be upfront with the voters that if we buy the park, we've got to maintain it. And in fact, we're already looking at $500,000 just to put restrooms in. So just buying the property isn't going to be the end of it. Not only there's regular maintenance, but even to make it basically compliant and usable as a city park, it's going to require significant investment. Whether that actual amount is on the ballot, I do think voters need to be reminded that the city incurs an obligation for this to keep it up.
Right. And I will touch on that, Chris. This would be a go bond, which would pay for capital improvements. It would not fund, ongoing maintenance and operations. Now, we are going to be, and have been working on for about a month, trying to figure out what does that maintenance and operations look like going forward. If this does become a park, what are the costs to mow? What is the irrigation cost? What is the water cost? What is the garbage collection? So that we do have a true picture. If we improve the natural turf, what's that going to cost per year for, aeration, top seeding, all those types of things that we do, similar to Mary S. Young, Willamette, or Fields Bridge. So that'll be a kind of a separate bucket that we will be hopefully, getting out to the community in the near future, providing that knowledge to them.
Sure.
Were there other comments, Chris, that you had?
No, that's it for me. Thank you.
I heard bathrooms, ADA, parking, lighting, paving.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then, as far as capital improvements, and then maintenance as, an additional concern. Awesome.
Yeah.
Others, John?
Yeah, I think that, if we don't do anything to it, just the maintenance is going to be significant. And it makes no sense to just have most people don't play soccer up there anymore. There's some baseball that goes on, but it's a pretty expensive piece of property just to have some baseball games. Most soccer games now are played on artificial surface. Soccer games on grass surface require a lot of maintenance. So that's obviously got to be part of the bond. It would make no sense to me to have a bond that just had the purchase price of the property, because that's not going to be what it's going to cost the city, and certainly not what it's going to cost the Park and Recreation.
So added to the capital expense, we have field replacement. And then it's my understanding, I just have a couple questions, if I may. The rate that the purchase price is determined at market price. So, because the school district has to optimize, what they're bringing into their capital budget. But that is equal to, park or a development, right? I mean, this isn't like a bargain basement deal, is my understanding.
Yeah, so there's two things to that, I guess. The will be reappraised in December, and that'll set the purchase price for that the city would pay. And I don't know the specifics of the appraisal, but I think it was, it was probably highest and best use, which was, $6.5 million, if I'm not mistaken, a big number.
And currently, do you program any of the capacity up there?
The city does not.
So we don't need to be concerned that that is a primary part of our capacity for program. Because you don't program up there, do you?
Correct. There's not any city programming there.
And all of the current agreements with baseball, et cetera, are with the school district.
Correct. They have an existing agreement because they have invested some money there and they have an
Right.
existing agreement with Westland, Wilsonville School District.
Okay. So it sounds like if the citizens want to put a bond up for this property, that to make it usable, there would have to be capital improvements. And, you know, then John added the field improvements to that list of capital improvements. I think that it's going to be really important to be transparent with the community regarding the additional capital investment that would be required. And I feel like I'm going to put my little fiduciary responsibility hat on and say, there's one other issue. In the master plan analysis, the consultant said, we are strong in our parks. We have lots of acres. We don't have facilities, and we have one of the lowest ratio of staff to acres, staff to activities that they had kind of seen. So, you know, part of me, obviously, we're not talking about whether we are supporting the bond or not, but it just seems like this isn't really aligned with our master plan. And I think that it will not have a lot of impact on where we need capacity. And it also really makes me concerned about the additional burden and impact to our already heavily stretched staff. So, you know, it's not just the purchase properties, all the capital improvements that would have to go into the bond. But then we would also have to have some type of commitment from the city for the ongoing maintenance and it's just that there's a lot there. There's a lot beyond, you know, the.
And what I'd say is, you know, city council has decided to put it on the bond, you know, so to give the citizens the opportunity to allow the city to purchase this. So they have made that commitment,
Okay.
you know, at this point. And I think what we can do, to your point, is make sure that the community is aware that the bond measure would pay for this, you know, and then ongoing maintenance and operations would cost this, you know, so that it's a full picture. And to John's point, what we could include in the bond measure, John, like we did at Mary S. Young, are initial improvements to the fields.
Correct.
So we could put in the bond upgrades to irrigation if those are deemed necessary. We could put, you know, improvement to the fields themselves, and that's all part of, you know, that package. Now, what we can't put is ongoing
Of course not.
maintenance the next year, you know, because that's outside of the bond's capital. That's maintenance and operations. But we could include, you know, some upgrades to fields that gets them to a level that the community wants as athletic fields, if that's
But-
desired.
All of the capital improvements should go into the bond, the bathroom, ADA, parking, paving, lighting, and irrigation and field replacement or improvement.
Well, I would say anything that is deemed necessary, desired, as this transitions to a park, should be included in the bond, because we don't, as you know, we don't have another bucket of money to build a restroom or to pave a parking lot, or, you know, so that's kind of what we're looking for is, are there things that we feel are essential to this transition? And then I think the next piece is maybe asking the community, when we go out to them, are there other items you'd like to see? And that's kind of where the playground or the dog park or some of the other amenities, the niceties that change it, were kind of listed. You know, not that any of those have to be listed anywhere, but give them, the community an opportunity to weigh in on those things. But I tend to agree with Chris. There are certain things that should be essential. I
Yes.
think Chris hit most of them on the head, when he talked about restroom, paving and ADA access throughout the park. And potentially upgrading the fields if that's what we desire.
Even though I'm sure the residents would not prefer it, but I forget who suggested lighting. I've been up there with my kid playing games through the years, and I'll tell you, the dusk gets up there and it's kind of creepy. I mean, it's just for safety purposes. And the other thing, it's not only park maintenance, but it's also, if it's city property, are the police? I mean, we're talking about, do they look down by the ducks? This would be another, I just think there's some liability here as well.
So Chris, sorry, Jane.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, I was just going to put my 2 cents in. So I vote for needing to know about the maintenance. And so, put a check mark. I'm curious about the maintenance too. Is there a way to wrap the maintenance from when the bond passes in May until the next budget cycle to fill in that until it can be added on to the next budget cycle as a part of this? And then, so that's one question. And then the other question is do we have any idea what the new middle school and the new high school will have? And if we're thinking about leaving 2 baseball fields here, are we going to have then like a sudden glut of baseball fields because 2 new schools have like a dozen new baseball fields, or are they not building any and they're relying maybe on these 2 here? So, what is the balance between 2 new large schools for middle school and high school, and then what, may or may not happen here? Because to me, those are related, that if they're building stuff, then, what are we doing here kind of thing?
That's a great question. I think we can certainly explore that further. I haven't, I think they're calling it the new 8th Creek that just went before city council is in a state where it hasn't been approved. And it does have a plan. There's no baseball, there's a track football, is my understanding, but the new high school that is at the old 8th complex, I haven't seen a plan for that, but it's a great question to take a look at and see if there are redundancies, Jane. Great idea. And your first question, I didn't completely hear about the next budget cycle.
Is there a way to add, if this was passed in May and then when the next budget cycle passes, I don't know if it's in July or if it's a 2-year rotation, didn't they just pass the budget this last July? For it to add in those maintenance costs that would be expected until the next budget cycle pass into the bond?
We can't both mingle that.
Yeah, so the bond money,
I don't know what's legal, but
the bond money
idea.
builds things only. But to answer your question, we are in year 1 of a 2-year budget. So our next actual budget, new written budget will be July of 23, would start July 1 of 23. But I mean, if maintenance costs increase in that last year, I mean, the city has a means to move money if money is available. If it overruns our Parks and Rec budget, there's, we go into our reserves, if we have to, and hopefully that never happens, but we would survive somehow. We wouldn't run out of money necessarily.
Okay, are there any other ideas, questions, or concerns that people like to share? Or are there any other areas that you want some input on? Ken?
No, I guess, like I said, internally, you talked about, going out to the community and I guess what it would be nice is for some either a motion or consensus of the board that if this property transitions to a park, these are the amenities that we feel are essential to include in the bond. And I just had one question, Chris. When you said lighting, were you talking about athletic field lighting or lighting throughout the park for safety and things?
Well, it's a good question. What I had in mind was to make at least the baseball field lighted, or, you know, enough lighting so there could be athletics after dark. However, you know, the safety lighting would probably be a pretty good idea too.
Right.
So I guess my answer would be both, or maybe separate them, but include them both.
And I will just say that I think athletic field lighting is a potentially controversial topic anywhere in the city. I mean, it just hasn't came easy when the high school has put their lights at the high school or at Rosemont. We might save that for as I explained last month, after the park is kind of purchased, if it is, I think at that point, we've talked about working with the Parks Board and the community to master plan the park after the fact, which is very unique. But
Sure.
that, I think, and that's potentially, unless the community desires all these other amenities, that's where I think we would talk about, where does the restroom go? Where do you need pathways? You know, if you wanted a dog park, let's locate it somewhere. And that's when we'd have all those conversations to come up with the design and the plan for the park, you know, once we've purchased it or we know we actually have it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's why I thought it probably is best in the optional category. But I would agree that the safety lighting or path lighting and so forth probably would be in we really need to do this if we're going to make it a park.
Right.
Just again, the critical things to me: restrooms, the paving, and the ADA things that go with that, and then maybe the lighting, and everything else could be like you said. Okay, how does the community want to use this park beyond what it's getting out of it now?
And I guess the last thing, I mean, besides this little list that I kind of put together, are there other types of things that the board would think we throw out there as options that might be desirable on this piece of property that the community could weigh in on?
Are there any like climbing walls or something? It always feels like a little bit older place. This is just kind of a strange property. But to have something other than just fields, so
Right.
that whether it's a play structure or, you know, some type of something that young adults or teens might enjoy.
Well, yeah, things that come to mind. I mean, I thought a play structure would be nice because younger kids can, when the older kids are playing baseball or soccer, but as Vicky makes me think, you know, you could put parkour elements there, which is popular. You could put, you know, you could activate it with some disc golf baskets. I mean, and those aren't all big dollar things, but I don't know how many options the board feels should go out to the community. I mean, do we want an all-inclusive menu? Or do we want a couple and let them, I don't know.
Well, maybe it is packages. So here's the teen package, here's the
Sure.
toddler package, and have them ready to rank or whatever. And there are lots of ways you can go about that,
Sure.
as opposed to one piece versus another piece.
Right, sure.
Maybe the theme or the target might be nice. I think regardless of what the overall is, it would be nice to have some place that little people could stay busy while older people are doing things. So
Right.
personally, I'd rate that a little higher. But I do think that we should include activities that are a little more focused on teens and young adults. That is always our whole
Right.
in our master plan.
Right.
So, you know, disc golf is great. climbing walls. I don't know
Okay.
what anyone's live, but, you know, something that is, a little different. I mean, you can
Sure.
even get creative and have you rent out up there, but,
Right.
you know, something that makes it more useful than just a flat Lego land,
Sure.
which is what it is now.
Okay.
And it gets really windy up there. It gets really cold up there. It was my least favorite place to go through all of the sports.
That
I'm
sounds-
just share, it was always a bad experience.
It's on the
So I-
top of the hill.
I apologize if that's shining through just a little bit.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be negative there at all. I apologize. Any other ideas? So just to summarize, it sounds like the board definitely wants to make sure that there's capital improvements
Right.
in the bond. And then definitely supports getting community engagement and determining the type of activities, the type of park. And is that enough for you guys to go on?
Yeah, and total transparency on potential maintenance and operations costs going forward. And I think we're fine looking at, what I've heard from the board is really restrooms, paving for parking, ADA access, and lighting to keep the park safe and, you know, throughout the park. Not necessarily athletic fields, but just safety lighting, light the parking lot, you know, just
Mhm.
like most of our parks.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's great.
Awesome.
I don't think we need a motion. We really, I mean, I think.
We're just
we're-
asking
I think
for
we're pretty clear.
advising.
Yeah,
We're doing our job.
yeah.
Awesome. Is there anything else then? Can we move on to the Go Bond project update?
We can.
Yep.
I have that.
You too. I had a fun time. Thank you. I'll look for your thing. Yes. I'll say.
I will email that whole package to you guys, since we couldn't read the whole thing, but, so last thing, we emailed out the Go Bond project update list. So I'm not gonna go through everything that's done. As we kind of talked briefly, athletic field renovation, the first one, Hammerley Field, we're kind of on hold. We want to see what happens with Oppenlander and then engage our youth sports to see what kind of improvements we make there. As we kind of talked, there are two very small baseball fields and they're dirt infields and we're not sure we need two dirt infields. Maybe they're grass because they're used by younger kids and we don't want to put money in there and change. The next one is Maddox Woods, which is still trying to partner with the Rotary to get that paver viewing platform in there. They've been working on some other things. Mary's Young Park, we're starting to look at the bridge and boardwalk and what that might look like after that landslide a number of years ago. McLean House and Park, we are working with the Friends and McKinsey, our consulting firm, and the city planning department. They have deemed our application complete for the land use process. But we have asked them to extend their timeline because we have to address some survey issues and some architectural issues that the volunteer architect with the Friends sent in, just some clarification stuff. So we're trying to keep that moving forward. Mid Hill Park, our staff actually repaired the bridge. It was damaged in the storm. And so that project is almost done. North Willamette Park, our staff, we have this marked as in process, but since I mailed this out on the 7th, project is about 98% complete. They have put in a boulder wall, put some pipe in the ground to solve some open drainage issues. We put some new concrete pathway in. We put a new border around some swings, and the last thing they need to do is put some seed out, as they prepared all the dirt. And I think I sent a picture out of that where where the new pathway is in there, but the seed will come this week. Willamette Park, we'll be sending out four bids probably by either tomorrow or Monday to get a new roof on our smaller gazebo down there. We have finally signed a scope of work for the area that we were talking about tonight with the dogs, our non-motorized boat area, improvements, ADA pathway, and improvements of that street area that we looked at last month from 12th out to Tualatin Avenue. BD 1818, the Willamette River waterfront, that's the trail and riverfront park. We are moving forward with a phase 2 section of the trail that we looked at. Further meetings have been occurring with PGE, some of their internal groups. We're going to meet this week, start to talk about entry, access, and utilizing their property. So we are hopeful that that can move forward in a timely fashion.
What type of timeframe are you looking at for that?
We have set a goal of having people walking a path a year from now. You know, and we think that's doable, assuming we get the, agreements to use the easements and the right of ways through PGE, who has been great through the process so far, but they do have to dot their i's and cross their t's with their property folks. So other than that,
How about any progress on the water play area?
the waterfront park.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I'm trying to work with our planning to see if there's some way that we can start a conversation with that private property owner. And we're kind of waiting if that individual would bring in a plan to build his whatever he has a vision for, we could start to have a conversation of what we could, partner on in that riverfront where there's PG property and where we have to have access through private property. So it's still in a kind of a wait and see, unfortunately. Any other questions we can answer tonight for you or date on anything else?
any feedback or concerns? I'd just like to recognize that the city is really trying to do a good job managing scarce resources by using staff where they can, or volunteer work, or eco projects. That always makes a big difference, and that extra effort allows us to do more stuff. It's a great job.
Thank you. We have tons of great volunteers out there. Our staff is taking on more construction when they can, the smaller projects that save money and improve their skills so we can do more land.
Okay. Thanks, Ken. Are there any other comments or questions from the board today?
Down here.
It's October, November, December, we start to do some reflections and planning. So I'd just like to encourage you to start thinking about what you would like to see in the upcoming year. I know, isn't it December when we do our goals?
Yeah, we should probably talk a little bit, and I can probably get together kind of the format that the city uses and kind of get that out. November, have a conversation about it, and then normally December is kind of, what did we accomplish? Where are we? What do we want to do? What were our pinch points? What was difficult? And those types of things.
So, since that's next month, just wanted to put that on people's radar and have you do a little reflection. I think that we've turned this board around and made it a pretty healthy place. So now let's get work done. Okay, if there's nothing else, then, oh wait, Tara, you have something?
November, our meeting is on Veterans Day next month,
Well,
so
that's
I'm going to need to alter that.
That's probably not good.
Yeah, second Thursday, so we're closed. So, you gonna pick a date or send it out?
Does Wednesday the 10th work?
Okay with me.
November 10th.
November 10th.
That works for me. That's the only week I'm in town. Woo woo. Keep it up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hybrid.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for doing such a great job at preparing information for us to review in advance. And great work on another fall activity guide. And so we will pull this meeting to a close, officially ending. Forget what we say.
Thank you.
We're adjourned. We're adjourned. I knew there was a
Right.
word.
See you, everybody.
Thank
All right.
you.
There it is.
To unrecord.
Turn off YouTube.